What we've realized is that, yes, we can solve everyday pains today, right? So practically, let's answer the questions, let's answer the ticket, let's fix the problem, let's figure out the configuration, let's select the right tools. But unless you're building a mechanism behind the scenes to be able to capture those decisions, you're still losing that information.
Absolutely. There is currently a slow motion crisis happening in industrial sales. The best application engineers at your company, the ones who know every product, every case, every reason a component fails in a pharma clean room versus an EV battery line, is probably in their late 50s. And when they retire, that knowledge is completely gone. My guest today is building the platform that captures it, scales it, and puts it in the hands of every salesperson on your team before that happens. Hello and welcome to the Manufacturing Connector. My guest today is Fay Goldstein, co-founder and CEO of Barden. Fay is an Israeli-American entrepreneur who spent her early career in brand and go-to-market strategy across VC, automotive, cybersecurity, and tech startups, and notably spent her college summers working in a condenser and compressor machinery shop. She's a Google AI First Accelerator alum, an 8200 EISP Accelerator alum, an active IDF reservist, and she's building what she calls the application intelligence layer for industrial automation sales and application engineering teams. Welcome to the Manufacturing Connector. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Jim. I'm doing well. I'm really actually very excited to be here. It's a long time coming.
It has been. And Faye, you and I have been connected for quite some time, but we shared a Uber this year
We did.
at MD&M West, from the show to our friends.
Bowling. Was it the happy hour, or it was from the bowling to the happy hour?
It was bowling to happy hour. It wasn't from the show itself. It was bowling. We went to multiple parties in one night.
We did.
And we just so happened to share an Uber. But in that Uber ride, I don't know if finally took the time to listen to what Faye had built, but I knew I needed to have you on the show because what you're building, what you've built is key to the future of the engineering side of this industry, right? We talk a lot about the silver tsunami and its effects on the skilled trades roles, the machinists, the welders, assembly people, etc. This takes that silver tsunami issue and brings it to light in a whole different role. So excited to have this conversation with you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So Faye, tell me, well, let's do, I just kind of created an icebreaker a couple weeks ago. So not all of my episodes have this. You don't even know it's coming.
I didn't.
Which is fun. Faye, if Barden as an organization had a mascot, what would that mascot be?
I think it would be a guy named Jeff. I think that every company has someone on their team, the Jeffs, the Todds, the ones that they just say, we just got to ask Jeff. Wow, Todd's on vacation. Who do we even ask this thing to? And so if I would see a mascot, it would kind of be this really smart, really intelligent guy named Jeff or woman named Nancy that somehow just knows everything. Now, I don't know what they would look like. I don't know the exact size of the mascot, but essentially we've heard this from a lot of our customers now is we just want to get Jeff's brain in something. We just want to get Todd's knowledge in something. We just want to have a book of Nancy. And so it would just be one of those kind of icons and people that somehow organizations just know that they have all the answers. And if they go on vacation or they retire or they decide to move to a competitor company, like we're screwed. And so I would say that would probably be a mascot if I could build a mini version of.
Yeah, that's awesome. That every person, that one, that the reason that you built Barden, right? That person who has all of that knowledge doesn't maybe know the most appropriate way to share all that knowledge all the time, but is so packed with good stuff that a company can struggle if they're no longer there. I like that. I like that a lot. So Faye, your background is really cool, and we are going to have you on an episode of the Manufacturing Culture podcast to like tell your story about everything that you've done in your career, because you've got a movie, like a novel, in just the few short years you've been around. So I'm going to save your history for that. Talk to us about Barden. How did you come up with this idea? How did Barden come about?
Barden was really kind of a building of an understanding. We started off with a recognition that industrial sales were broken. Now, we didn't exactly know which part of it was really broken, which part of it really deserved fixing, which part of it deserved attention, and obviously, as a business owner, which part of it was painful enough that people would be willing to pay to solve it. And we started off building actually with a broad assumption that companies that have lots of complex products, both configurable products, custom built products, ultimately, selling those products was a complex process. Now, at first, we thought the pain belonged in the world of building out the proposals or the quotes. And we started building out a nice product to help folks put together proposals. We got it into some of our design partners' hands, and for those folks, it felt like a really nice to have kind of product. They were using CPQs for certain things. They were building out their quotes and their ERPs. It was like nice that it looked good, but it wasn't really a necessity. And we kind of went to back to the drawing board when it came, okay, we built something not exactly a necessity for so many folks to have. What it really is truly the pain. And myself and my co-founder then spent about a year and a half going to as many industrial trade shows as we could get our legs to, because those things are huge. So it's a matter of like, how much can we walk? We were in Germany, we were in Switzerland, we were in America, we went to the US, went to Chicago, Detroit, California. And our goal throughout those trade shows were just to have as many conversations with the folks as possible, to dig deep and to ask why, as deep as possible. And what we ultimately realized was that the pain in the sales cycle wasn't the classic sales pain that you have in software. It was the fact that in every single customer facing engagement in the industrial space, and we're particularly starting off focusing in the industrial automation space, you essentially can't just have a smooth talking sales guy or really great helpful support person involved in that. Those folks actually need to be engineers, because the conversations they're having with their customers, in order for it to be a successful customer experience, they need to be able to answer really complex questions about very complex configurable products. And the problem in the industrial space is that there's actually now an 85% deficit of engineers going into the space. And if we're already having a deficit of engineers coming into industrial, how many of those engineers would actually end up going into industrial sales or industrial support? They're most likely not heading in that direction. And so we realized the pain truly is the fact that these are very specialized sales, and these are very specialized support experiences, very custom and very, very focused on exactly what that customer needs. So you can't just do a playbook across the board. You
Mhm.
need someone that actually knows the customers, knows all of the potential opportunities in that customer's environment, and all the potential pitfalls as well.
Faye, is there a common like life cycle of an industrial engineer? Like, are most industrial engineers, uh, or sales application engineers, are they going into the world of work before they're going into sales roles, or are they going straight out of university into these kinds of sales roles, or is there no like typical path?
So there's not so much, I haven't seen such of a crazy typical path. What I do see is a lot of folks that start off in product heading into application engineering because they deeply know their product. So they start off as a product manager or a product support specialist within a specific product line. They then deeply understand that product line. And then they're able to say, okay, well, I know this product line so much, and I'm oftentimes being called to explain this product. Maybe there's an opportunity for me to get commission on my explanation and move into the sales roles. Sometimes we actually have folks that are completely separate. You've got the sales or the reps that are on the field that are not necessarily as experts in the space, and they oftentimes have to rely on the applications guys back at home or at headquarters to escalate a lot of those questions. And those folks that are, let's say, the field reps, typically just start off as, yeah, mechanical engineers or electrical engineers. They want to get their hands dirty in the industrial space, and they go in to be kind of a rep. Very rarely do you find that there's a huge, massive mixing up until the very senior level. When you are a senior, most likely you'll have sales experience and you'll have the actual product or the applications experience. But you only get that when you're a senior, and you only get that once you've had X amount of years, 20 something years in the space. That means you're getting close to retirement. That means too many people are relying on you, and you're not going to have enough seniors that are able to do this, especially when you want to expand your product line or expand your customer opportunities. And so, in order to hit that level of expertise, both the sales and the application and product specialization, you only hit that really once you kind of move up and have enough time in the industry. And that's a long time to wait. It's a
It
long
is.
time to wait to get expertise.
It is. And I mean, a lot of my career has been on that sales side of things, right? Business development, sales, marketing, etc. But the amount of times that I had to get a hold of that application engineer or needed an answer from an application engineer that wasn't available. And this is over the last 20, 25 years. I really wish Barden was available then, because I could have just like typed into a quick chat, right? So I see this being a huge solution for the industry. Fate, who should be using Barden, right? If I can see myself having used Barden, who should be using Barden?
So it's interesting. Initially, we built Barden to be the application engineer that sits in the sales guy's pocket, right? So that means the core users and our core ideal customer were the sales teams, the folks that don't necessarily have that application knowledge. Then we started rolling it out into companies. And I have one example right now that we started off with building it out for their sales team, working with their sales team and getting it into their field reps' pockets. And then all of a sudden, the representative that was we were working with and the sales leader that we were working with said, you know what, I really want to show this to our head of application engineering, because his team, there's only 7 of them. They're answering all of our team's questions all the time, but not only our team's questions, because yeah, Barden can help my team not escalate too much of the applications guys, but all of the ticketing and the ticket support that come in from the customers go directly to the apps guys. And so what we found was that Barden is not really just only for the sales team, but it actually can duplicate or even triple truly the amount and capacity that the applications teams themselves can do. And so for one example, one of our customers actually was able to accept an entire additional load of 24/7 support they're offering now for a very, very large robotic company. It's an integrator and distributor that now is able to answer all of these global support questions with the team that they currently have, because that team can now work so much faster. That applications team that's tasked with answering all these support tickets can answer them so much faster. So what we're realizing, we're seeing now, is we kind of go across the commercial value chain. We would say we're helping with the pre-sales element. So that's scoping of industrial projects, answering pre-sales questions from the folks in the field, going ahead and making sure that when you're engaging in a pre-sales conversation, you've got the support you need. The actual sales process, so helping answer those RFQs, building out those proposals, building out their quotes, and the post-sales and after-sales support element of things. When you've already given a project, when you've already sold those products, when you've already built an actual automation system, who is there to help respond to all of the incoming and inbound queries afterwards? And we're finding that we're building out a suite and almost an operating system is really where we're heading towards for industrial automation customer facing teams.
I love it. And could with your experience in the go to market side of things, right? Is this something that you could see marketing teams even use to fill those top of funnel needs that they have for SQLs or even MQLs?
So I'll show this actually in a demo. One of the things that we built out particularly for these marketing teams is the ability to very quickly create assets, technical documentation or case studies, use cases, documentation that is custom built on the fly for specific customers based on those applications. And we're building out additional suites, in particular also for those customer. Essentially, when we're thinking about it is what goes into enhancing a customer experience when they're a buyer of ours. If we're selling solutions or we're selling products, who are the teams that we need to supercharge them in order for them to give a better customer experience? Those are the pre-sales guys, those are the
Yeah.
marketing teams, those are the customer support teams, customer experience teams. And we believe that we'll be able to build through all of those. Now, we're taking bit by bit and we're taking piece by piece, because one of the things I'm seeing that sometimes folks do is they jump, let's say, straight to marketing, but they haven't built the expertise in do we even know how to answer questions about these products? Because you don't want to build a bunch of really nice, fancy looking documentation, but none of it's technically correct, or it doesn't speak in the language of the user, what the actual customer will need. And so that's something that we realized is we need to do two things. The North Star we have at Barden is that we want Barden to be useful and trusted. And those come hand in hand. Barden needs to be trusted. The answers it needs to give are correct, and it needs to be useful. So it needs to be giving support in very practical, almost boring ways in order to hit the customer's needs.
I love it.
So the answer to that in short is yes. And we will be able to be doing that.
I love it. I love it. So you have a demo you're going to take us through today, right?
I can show you a bunch of fun features and fun
Let's
things that
see it. I'm
we're doing.
excited.
Do we want to jump straight into that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alrighty. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to show what Barden is live today, what you would see if you kick off using Barden tomorrow, and how easy it is to start using it. I'm going to then give a little bit of a snapshot into a few things that we're releasing over the next little while, and then a few things that we have in our roadmap that we are still getting feedback on, and that we'll be releasing hopefully within the next month or 2 months or so. Now, I don't know when this recording will be released, so it might already be live by the time this gets published. So definitely always reach out to us. We're a startup. What that means is we move fast and we build things based on customer feedback. So we're always open to thinking about our roadmap and adjusting and building new things that our customers really need. So
Awesome.
just so you see me moving from screen to screen, that's a little bit of why we're doing it. Okay, I'm first going to walk you through a little bit of the classic element of Barden. This is the very basic kind of initial chat interface. First things first is we can connect directly into any customer CRM. So whichever CRM you have, we can integrate directly into it, pull the contacts and companies. So when you're asking questions, it's not just answering them based on the product, but it actually understands the customer nuance of who these prospects are that you're working with. We then have this area called the vaults. The vault area here is broken down into a few different vaults. And the first one we have is product. Now, we are currently building out additional elements within this product database. It's another screen. I'll show you what it's going to be looking like. But what we have here essentially is the ability to break down any sort of documentation, but not just the documentation, also understand the visuals within that documentation. So for example, if we're talking specifically about, let's get something complicated here, right? We're talking about a pressure sensor. It's really important that when you're actually looking at the pressure sensor and asking questions about it, you're able to understand the visuals. And a lot of AI tools are not equipped to understand mechanical drawings. They're not equipped to understand the complexity of the visuals within documentation. So this is number one. We call this the product vault. Now, when we're going into Barden, the basic interface, for example, would be asking a simple question. Now, what we're building Barden to do is to understand how to answer a question like an application engineer. So an engineer wants to connect the four specific IO link sensors to a multi-channel monitor to centralized display. Will it work? What does it actually accept from the series, and what's the correct connection method? This is something that folks would go ahead and ask questions. We're looking at multiple pieces of documentation, looking at multiple things in order to try to understand this. And Barden is able to say, we have to flag a critical compatibility issue with this. Its setup will fail, and it explains why. It also gives a deep example of where that's coming from within the documentation. And not only that, you can take it to the next level of actually create a report and a technical documentation. This is going back to your question, for the user to be able to send them, where you can gives a very clear explanation. If you wanted to add in things, you can simply type directly into this. And now this is something ready to rock and roll for this customer, explaining what the problem is and explaining these things. Now, this is the first step of Barden, is just the ability to ask questions and get answers, truthful, grounded, very specific answers that an application engineer would have been giving you with the source information, page 40 of this document, when you can go in and see it, to immediately answer that question. And this is just kind of stage one and step one of what we're building. Questions about this, or do you want to dive somewhere deeper before I show you some other things?
I find it fascinating how quickly it was able to synthesize that data, right? And because you truly are trying to emulate that person who has 30, 35 years of experience, and those people you call and they're able to tell or answer a question nearly immediately, and you've got that same sort of visibility here, right?
I'd say not only that, I think one of the things that we've heard a lot from our customers is it's not always what someone knows, but it's also the things that they don't know they don't know. And oftentimes, junior engineers or junior sales folks don't even know how to follow up and what questions they need to ask the customer. And so, one of the things that Barden always does is it says, here's the questions that you need to ask the customer, right? Is the requirement for XYZ, or is it simply a local multi-channel visual display? And what's the required cable length? So this changes the decision about how you want to connect the sensors, what we need to do in order to take it to the next level. And this actually led us to build another module within Barden, which is the ability to create smart AI-powered questionnaires, which essentially what we realized was that a lot of teams are spending time going in and trying to figure out, how do I select the right product? How do I give my customers the ability to select from all of my opportunities which ones make sense for their use cases? Now, some of the massive OEMs or massive companies are building configurators, or they're building tools to do this, but not every company has the ability to do that. And so what we've built out actually for engineers, and some of our teams are using this to do an intake form to build a panel. Some folks are doing it to build another scoping for an automation system. This company that we're going to show here is like, we're going to use this to actually select a sensor, right? And the ability for folks to go in and build their own kind of smart questionnaires, but not only the questionnaires, enable, and what this does is it actually guides the user through questions. And if the questions that they don't know they need to ask are not here, Barden's AI looks at the answers that are given here and says, we actually need to know this and this and this and this. So it helps guide younger sales teams through classic, let's say 5 or 6 classic questions they need to ask in order to scope a project. But then Barden's smart enough to now take it to the next level and ask the questions they didn't even know they needed to ask in order to give a fuller project scope to get it quoted faster and to get it out back to the customer as fast as possible. So that's just another one of the current features that we've got and current opportunities that we have live today.
That's really cool. I mean, I've loved everything I've seen so far. That's really freaking cool.
So we've got a few other fun things, simple things like workflows, where you basically, instead of a chat, you're configuring Barden to automatically go through very specific steps. And so let me go back here real quick, where you can say, and I'll show you how this works. You can say, I want you to actually give me a data sheet, but I want you to, every time I want you to give me a data sheet, I want you to do it through steps. And so what Barden will do now is, instead of it going and creating something on the fly, you can actually give it very guided instructions about how you want it to accomplish things. So configuration support, pre-sales feasibility check, a whole bunch of things, and you can easily create new workflows. Soon these workflows are going to be able to connect into existing systems that you also have. So it could be, hey, Barden, go ahead and update this record and check this system next, and then go ahead and do this next. And you, as a human in the loop, can actually have control over that. One of the things that we're hearing a lot is that there's still a little bit of a distrust of just sending AI agents to go ahead and do things. And folks want to have a human in the loop or ability to control some of the steps. And so this is one of the things that we're building out for that as an opportunity as well. These are some of the fun things that we've got coming up, which I think is important to show, and I'd love to share it with you folks.
Yes.
Which is the tickets. So this is actually something we're releasing very soon. It is not yet live. One of the things that we've heard, and this is for that post-sales experience, is that folks want and need to connect into their ticketing. We're working with building out integrations to all of the top support organizations and customers that get companies that get a lot of inbound tickets. And if customers don't have it, we can act as their ticketing system as well. And essentially what you'll see is that you'd be able to come here, see the support tickets that come in about your products or about your customers, be able to click into it. And here's where it gets special. It's not just about looking at that ticket and organizing it for you, but you can do quite a few things. So I'll walk you through here. Number one, you see the classic overview. You see the ticket that came in and what the questions are. And then you have 2 modules down here, and we're enhancing these as we continue to grow. Number one are quick actions. So you can go ahead and choose a bunch of quick AI actions that you might want to take on this ticket. Rewrite the ticket if you need to escalate it, identify similar tickets in the past, create a response to that ticket, or even chat with that ticket in order in the same way I just showed you how Barden chat works just off the bat. You can now chat with Barden with the very specific context of this support ticket that comes in. And so let's go ahead and look a little bit here. It shows you the products that are involved in this ticket, any of the customer files that they might have uploaded, so videos or visuals of the things that they're reporting. Simple things like rewrite the ticket. For example, you want to rewrite this ticket in Spanish because you want to escalate it to the team that can go ahead and fix it while they're in Mexico. You can go ahead and do that. You want to go and look at similar past tickets to see how they're solved and what happened. You can escalate those ones, go and see the matches and the recommendation paths that those might take. And you can start creating a response to this ticket, right? So this also goes through a process of analyzing the ticket, Barden going in the back end and understanding what is the ticket problem, how do we recommend the next steps. You can go ahead and also change that response again inside there if you want to add more things to it. And then you have many other actions, and we're going to continuously increase what these quick actions are going to be. And soon we'll allow folks to be able to actually create their own quick actions and their own prompts, their own AI agents that actually do things on top of these tickets as well. And like I said, they can chat with the ticket. So they can go ahead and create an asset if they wanted to from this ticket. They have, a history of all the chats, create new chats. And this ticketing system as well is you have multiple team members involved. So you can have whoever looks at the ticket initially, get feedback from one of your senior representatives, get somebody else to hop into this ticket and to help answer it. And this is kind of the next module that we're building out in Barden. This is going to be live for our customers, I would say, again, in about a month. And we're really ready to have folks to start being our first early adopters with this one here.
Well, just because I know how long it'll take me to get this out, guys, these new features will be out by the time this episode's released. So go ahead and go check them out. Faye, I have a quick question while you're on this. I mean, one of the things that I see just in what my life is, we have a lot of appliances that break and people use them as consumables, right? Solenoid valve goes out on your refrigerator, you toss it. I just last weekend, 2 weekends ago, I replaced the ice maker in my refrigerator, right? I would have loved to have had something like this on that direct to consumer appliance type product, right? Is that something that we can expect in the future? Maybe not Barden specifically, but is that what the future looks like for like appliance repair?
So it's a really good question. It actually was a big debate that we had when we were building Barden is do we want to build for the sellers or we want to build for the end users? And I believe in the way we're looking at it is that in order to truly build the right product to give the right answers to you as an end user, the companies that are building those products need to feel confident enough that the answers that you would be getting are the right answers. The worst thing that can happen is that all of a sudden there's some sort of support tool on a website of, let's say, these consumables or of the products that you're using, and it all of a sudden starts hallucinating the wrong solution for you or the wrong answer for you. What we're seeing is there's a lot of folks that want these customer facing tools. They want these customer facing chats. They want these customer facing portals. But until you reach a level of, I know, and especially when it comes to industrial products, I know that there's not going to be a potential for very high hallucination, or I can trust that this product will actually give the right answer. I find you're either going to have a crappy product that you're not going to be able to engage with really well and it's going to give you the wrong answers, or you're just going to be disappointed. And so the way we're looking at it as Barden is we're saying, let's build first for the internal teams. Let's make sure that we are capturing their knowledge and getting their human in the loop saying, yes, this is how we would answer it. Let's build that strong enough for these companies. And then Barden is built to be able to be customer facing when we get to that level, when there's a confident level enough that you as a representative or a sales team or an application engineer trust Barden. And then we would be able to open it up for customer facing things. Now, that's one thing. So yes, I do believe that we will very quickly be moving towards an area of being able to build customer facing interfaces that the users themselves can ask questions. Now, with your question about consumables, I think there was a big question for ourselves also. Do we want to build tools for off the shelf products? So let's say the Grangers or the folks that are building things that are not custom or not configurable and not really that complex. And we realized as a company that there was a strong, bigger pain to solve when it came to complex configured products, that wasn't something a general AI could really truly do. So I do believe, and I'm seeing it, that in a lot of these off-the-shelf consumer-facing products, there are tools that you can go ahead and chat with and query and ask questions about those things. The way that we're building it in Barden is to be for the complex products, to be for the very complex builds, to be for the projects, which actually leads me to show you one of the next very big modules that we're building, which is for very complex industrial automation projects. Right?
Awesome.
When it comes to the industrial space, we're not just talking, like I just showed you now, only about, hey, does this valve work? Or what do I connect my sensors to? Or this PLC, can I connect it to this FANUC robot? In industrial space, particularly when it comes to system integrators, which is incredibly dense with applications engineering, right? That's really what it is. It's fully, we now need to know the application and we will build solutions for that application. There are very few products, there are very few solutions. Everything in that space is built on scoping on Excel, getting a bunch of RFQs inside, plugging it into, putting it in some folder somewhere, building out a response to that RFP, editing that, trying to figure out where that edit is. And you have decades and decades of incredible historical projects that have been built successfully or unsuccessfully that are not really used for future decisions in industrial automation builds. So you have this massive start over tax. Every
Yeah.
industrial project starts over from scratch, unless the person doing this new project happened to have done and remember the one that they did 2 years ago. Oh, we have a new opportunity from Pfizer. Oh, I remember 2.5 years ago we did something for Merck. We can actually learn from that. But that's a dangerous premise to have when you're trying to expand and trying to go beyond, let's say, relying on the Todds or the Jeffs or the Nancys.
Yeah.
And so
I love it.
essentially, the next phase that we're really focusing on is a project build. How do we make sure that we're taking industrial projects, breaking them down, and enabling the future of building out industrial automation projects? And while we're doing this, not to overload with insane amounts of information, but the magic is not just what I'm showing you as the product. The magic is really what happens behind the scenes of Barden.
Okay.
Because what we've realized is that yes, we can solve everyday pains today, right? So practically, let's answer the questions, let's answer the ticket, let's fix the problem, let's figure out the configuration, let's select the right tools. But unless you're building a mechanism behind the scenes to be able to capture those decisions, you're still losing that information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so behind all of this, behind all of these nice interfaces, is a very, very complex backend that essentially is building out what's called a knowledge graph or a context graph, which is essentially building out relationships between products, customers, applications. And every question that's being asked is building out a new web, and a new web of this variant was chosen for this customer application based on this requirement. And essentially what's being built behind the scenes is a reflection of the decision-making process that an industrial application engineer goes through when answering a question. Our goal is to replicate that behind the scenes so that in the future, Barden itself can answer those questions without necessarily having a human in the loop, that there's such a high confidence level of not this should work because the data sheets or the operational guides or this says it should work, but this will work because we have so many proof points, so many relationships between this that have happened in the past that we can now, as an AI, make a deterministic decision of yes, this will work because of exactly why it's worked in other ways in the past.
Got
And
it.
that's really the big picture. Solving very, very, very important productivity pains today while building the infrastructure and the knowledge capture of industrial automation decision making so that you can have that as a knowledge moat. Each company can own that for the future of whatever they need to make those decisions in the industrial space. And again, this is an upcoming feature. This one is a little bit more, I would say this is probably going to take us about 2 to 3 months. So this might still be in the works by the time you publish this. But essentially what you're looking at here Let's open this up again. You can see my screen, right? Perfect. Is essentially, let's say we're talking about a historical project that we're coming in, we get a customer RFQ, we get a customer need. Barden breaks it down into understanding a few things. It understands the customer need, the overview. It breaks it down into seeing, well, it doesn't have an outcome yet. What was a solution? This is a historical project. Who was the customer? What was their plant environment? What was their existing base that they already had installed? So, did they already have Rockwell control logic? Do they already have an Ethernet backbone? What were some of the things that they actually had existing? What was their original problem they needed to solve? All these functional requirements. And so, this is kind of a way to take historical projects and finally have use of them. So, the first step with Barden right now is how do we take your historical solutions and break it down in a way that for future solutions, there is some sort of knowledge base that it can start building on it. Now, this insights and recommendations come afterwards as part of the loading of these projects as well. What are some of the insights that Barden's able to find from this particular project? What was the BOM that was delivered for this project, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not going to go too deep into the ontology, but essentially the goal is that every historical project can now be engaged with in a more efficient way, so that now when you have a new project, it's now similar to the tickets. It's now referencing and understanding, okay, I have had a project, and this is where the ontology comes into play. I had a project that had these specific requirements, this specific customer environment, and these were this was their actual, what they had built in their plant. Now, that might have been for an automotive project that you did, and there are so many similarities for, let's say, a future medical build that you might be doing, but you're not really recognizing those similarities. You're not really taking in understanding of what can I extract from this project here, and that project 5 years ago, and this project 2 months ago, and this project that, let's say, I didn't do here in, Chicago, but our team in Switzerland did. How can we use all of that collective information to more efficiently build future industrial solutions and industrial opportunities for our teams and for our customers? And so this is another way of saying, how can we take complex data? And again, this is really where we're focusing, is taking a lot of complex data and being able to break it down into a way that a human would typically look at it and break it down. How do we build AI that can do that? And that's really where we're spending most of our time in.
So, I love all of this. I am excited for the future. Couple of questions because some people's relationship with AI is complicated, right? So, how are you able to provide that level of comfort for your users that Barden isn't going to hallucinate, that they're going to get an actual answer that they're looking for when a lot of people's experience with ChatGPT is they can, somebody on Reddit said that the sky was green 3 years ago, and now ChatGPT, says that the sky is green.
Yeah. So there's a few ways that we're doing that. Number one is we're building a very solid, when I showed you those vaults, Barden first and foremost is expected and trained to pull information that can be verified from your documentation, from the documentation it has. So whether that's being added into the vault or whether it's being connected into your PIM or connected into your product documentation library, whatever it is, Barden is expected to start there. And not only does it start there, it also references it. It gives you the page, gives you the line, it gives you explanation of exactly here's where this information is coming from. And Barden also has multiple internal systems that it double checks itself, and there's other internal agents that verifies against the other agents. So it's kind of like an internal dialogue happening before it gives the answer. Now, what that ends up doing is Barden does answer a little slower than some of the classic chats we're used to because there's so many verification steps. But really the reason that it does that is because we want to make sure that the answers are trusted. That being said, we are very intentional about also allowing a human in the loop. And we do not do autonomous actions right now. We're building it intentionally to say, we know that right now there's a trust element here that we need to bridge, that we need to make sure you trust these answers, and we are not building Barden to go ahead and all of a sudden respond directly to that customer without you as a human and someone that really understands this coming in and checking it. Now, as time goes on and as Barden is being used, it learns the pushbacks, it learns what you're changing, it learns what you're giving a feedback. And remember that neural network I kind of mentioned behind the scenes is happening? every pushback builds another one of those relationships. Every edit builds another one of those relationships. And so Barden chat is not you just chatting, but it's actually you intentionally almost training Barden behind the scenes and building that knowledge in so that it could be used in the future. And which is why right now getting folks to start using it and to start pushing back and start giving feedback on it is really important. The earlier you get this into your company, whether or not immediately are you sending all those answers directly to those customers, but the earlier you start using it and getting it into your hands, the better and smarter it becomes through usage. I think people more and more will realize that there are a lot of things AI can really optimize in their lives. And even if that means now that Barden does 70% of the work, that means 70% of your day is freed up. And so, really, that's how I would encourage people to look at it. Not that this is going to replace everything I need to do, but this actually gives me the time and the ability to do the things I like to do or to do the hard things. While Barden goes ahead and really supports all of the things that have been taking up too much time that I shouldn't be doing.
I love it. I love it. And you answered multiple questions I had in that one response. So you're really good at what you do, Faye. One of the things that jumped out at me as I was prepping for this episode was a post that you have on your LinkedIn where you talk about an internal rule at Barden, brilliant but boring. What does that mean? And why does it matter for industrial AI?
I think there's a love affair sometimes that people have with really cool interfaces, really very fancy ways of your like magic that all of a sudden happens in front of your face. And I think for this world of industrial that we're building in, when folks want to see a machine that works, they want to go in and they want to know if there's a part that's broken, they want to know how to fix it, they want to be able to take that part out. We're looking at this world and we're saying like the industrial manufacturing space and industrial automation are capex builders and buyers. We're talking about things that need to work. And so what that made us realize is that we shouldn't be focusing all these fancy whistles and dings and dimes and all these really beautiful things. We need to think about what are the practical, very, very oftentimes monotonous or boring work that needs to take place in order to make a deal, in order to give a customer a good experience, in order to support that sale. And while we could have built some incredible click here and all of a sudden everything is done for you and wow, bing, bang, boom, here you go. We realized that there is a time and place for those things to take place. And in the industrial space, we need to just think of the practical, hard, boring workflows and make behind the scenes those things work brilliantly. And so, whenever we're thinking about what is our next release, what is the next things that we want to build, we're really trying to think on the very practical, boring, day to day use cases. And we have conversations with our customers like, what is something that you had to do today that you needed to do in Excel? What is something you needed to do today that you needed to click too many buttons in order to make it happen? What is something you needed to do today that you needed to call somebody and wait on the line while they figured out, some other problem and how to get back to you? What is something you needed to escalate to headquarters in Japan and it took them a day and a half to get back to you? And you now might have lost that customer. And so those are the things that we're thinking about, these boring but very necessary things. And how do we make them brilliant?
I love it. I love it. Faye, how can people find you and Barden?
So find me on LinkedIn, Fay Goldstein. Pretty easy to find me. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. You can email me, fay@bardenai.com. I'm always available there. I toss out my number here, but don't want a bunch of robocalls calling, so I won't do that. If you have Jim's number, ask Jim. Jim will give you my number.
Absolutely.
And yeah, really reach out. Again, we are a startup. What that means is that we are building fast, we're building furious, and we're building with the feedback of our customers. So we're building things that users actually need. So if there's something that you've got that you want us to take a look at and you say, hey, this sounds interesting, let me give it a try, that's where we come in.
Awesome. Last question, Faye, as we wrap up here. What haven't I asked you that you want to share with the audience?
I don't have anything. I think what I would just really say, which is shocking that I say I don't have anything and now I'm about to talk, but it is really that I think people need to not be too worried about AI in the sense of take bits and pieces, take small bites. And I think there's a mistake that a lot of organizations do when they say we need to overhaul everything. We're going to build an entire AI strategy and overhaul this department, this department, this department, this department. We want one system to do all of it. And then I think about it and I say, and I look at the industrial space and I say, it doesn't make sense to expect one company to do everything really well. That's not how this world works. We've got the folks that are building the motors, there are folks that are building the sensors, the folks that are building the drives, the folks that are building the robotics, the folks that are building, and in theory, again, yes, one company that's building a robot has engineers, so they could be building bicycles or motorcycles, but they're not doing that because stay in your lane. And you become successful when you find the teams that are building the things that they really know. And so one thing I hear a lot is like, hey, we've got our, senior guy of innovation that's building out our AI strategy. And, we don't know yet what we want to do. I think that if organizations want to stay ahead, and if organizations want to support their customers in the way that their customers are expected to be supported now, which is immediate, which is fast, which is smart, which is to the point, which is to what they need, this is an opportunity to start building and trying things and start with people that are young and fresh and excited to build because we're on top of the tech and we're going to be building the best tech out there, and we'll be building it at a price that really works for you, and it's not a huge massive overhaul because we want to win too. And so that's really what I would say is go ahead, not be scared, don't try to do everything at once, and take a bet on the little guys because we're gonna blow you out of the water.
I love that. That was awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Fay Goldstein. Fay, thank you so much for being a guest today and walking us through Barden, giving us a little background, who it's for, all the things, how it solves problems, most importantly. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find them at bardenai.com. There will be a link in the show notes. If you run a sales or application engineering team and that knowledge bottleneck is slowing you down, this has been the episode for you. Please subscribe to this show, like this video, because it makes more people find it. It's not for Faye's ego. It's not for my ego. It's so more people find this episode. Until next time, I'm Jim Mayer. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.